At this point, we've all heard about the new caliber from Federal, 30 Super Carry, because it leaked all over the internet last week and reactions have been mixed. So in today's video, we're going to talk about what 30 Super Carry is, the pros and cons of the new round, but with the caveat that all the data we have so far is from Federal, and I guess we'll know more once the caliber actually gets out there and there's some independent testing, but let's talk about it today on paper. So what is 30 Super Carry? In 5 words, 380 Magnum, but also not. I'll explain. The pitch from Federal is 30 Super Carry gives you 9mm power, but 20% more capacity than 9mm in the same size gun. But is that true? As a real world example, the new Smith Wesson CSX I just reviewed last week could potentially hold 15 or 16 rounds of 30 Super Carry in total instead of 13 rounds of 9mm, and that is a lot of firepower for a pistol that you can basically fit into your pocket. Let's talk first about energy. 30 Super Carry is going to be offered initially in 100 grain and 115 grain weights. That's like heavy 380 or light 9mm. Looking at velocity and energy, the 30 is heavier and faster than 380, so there's nothing to see here. The 30 outclasses the 380 on every metric. Looking at 9mm, however, the lighter, faster 30 Super Carry doesn't quite keep up with 9mm energy. We'll look at 124 grain HST 9mm from Federal. Excellent personal defense round, really the gold standard. The most powerful 30 cal round is going to be 100 grains, 1,250 feet per second, which creates 350 foot-pounds of energy. The 9mm 124 grain HST is only a little bit slower, but generates almost 400 foot-pounds of energy because it's 24% heavier, 124 grain versus 100 grain. But still, looking at the math, standard 9mm 124 HST has less than a 10% advantage on the 30 Super, while the Super Carry energy actually outperforms slower and heavier 147 grain 9mm. That all sounds well and good until the big swinging dick comes through those squeaky saloon doors. 124 grain Federal HST plus P, one of my favorite 9mm loadings. The plus P version of this round spits out at 1,200 feet per second or faster, which is the same range as the lighter 30 Super Carry rounds, but it's pushing a larger, wider, heavier 124 grain round, not a 100 or 115 grain. That means that the 9mm plus P HST generates 400 foot-pounds of energy, or about 15% more energy than the strongest 30. It's also larger in diameter, which means more expansion, but we'll get to that in just a sec. The FBI released a white paper on terminal ballistics back in 2014 when they were switching back to 9mm. That paper said, verbatim, I quote, "The single most important factor in effectively wounding a human target is to have penetration to a scientifically valid depth, which is 12 to 18 inches of ballistic gel." According to Federal's data, 30 Super Carry penetrates 12 to 15 inches of gel consistently. That's more or less on par with most defensive 9mm and well ahead of most 380. There are some 380 rounds that will penetrate 12 plus inches of gel, but most of them won't expand properly. But the ones that expand properly often don't penetrate enough. There are exceptional 380 rounds that will do the job, but they are again the exception, and performance can somewhat be inconsistent. The Super Carry has good energy and good penetration, but what about expansion? How much does the round expand on impact? More expansion means bigger holes in bad guys, which means larger temporary and permanent wound cavities, faster desanguination. The FBI noted in their 2014 report that expansion is the second most important factor to penetration. Oversimplified, penetration times expansion equals total wound cavity. Kinda. Both 9mm and 380 rounds are .355 in diameter. The 30 Super is .312 inches in diameter. Coincidentally, that's the same diameter as the 7.62 39 round from the AK-47, although a bit lighter. The 30 expands to about 0.55 to 0.6 inches, not bad, but even 380 HST expands to 0.65 inches, while my favorite 124 grain HST plus P will stretch out to a whopping 0.87 inches. Because the 30 Super Carry is smaller in diameter than 9 and 380, the cost is going to be slightly less expansion, but bear in mind that while you don't get as much expansion as 380, you definitely get more penetration with 30. Summarized, the 30 Super Carry will deliver about 50% more energy or more than 380 and about 10 to 20% less energy than 9mm. Penetration should be comparable to most 9mm, but it won't expand as much as 9 or even some 380 rounds. The next question then, why would I carry 30 Super instead of 9mm? The short answer is a significant capacity gain in exchange for allegedly moderate terminal performance losses. This is going to be a personal decision. Do you want greater capacity in the same size gun, or do you want more power? As you can see from this graphic from Federal, you can get 11 rounds of 30 Super Carry in a magazine 20% smaller than a 10-round double-stack 9mm magazine. Mags can be 20% smaller than 9mm double-stack mags, but hold more ammo. Or you can use a 10-round 9mm magazine and it'll hold 12, maybe even 13 rounds of 30 Super Carry in it. In a single stack, you can add more or less 1 or 2 rounds in a 9mm single stack magazine if you're using Super Carry instead. So if Federal's numbers are right, then you can take your pick between 10 to 15% less energy in exchange for 20% more capacity, or you can go with 9mm. At that point, again, personal decision. The FBI ballistics report itself said capacity is desirable because officers miss between 70 and 80% of the shots they take during a shooting incident. So with a 10-round magazine, you're talking 2 to 3 hits per mag. With a 12 or 13-round magazine, 2.5 to 4 hits per mag. And doesn't matter if 30 is weaker than 9mm if both of them meet the FBI standard. Probably. I mean, you're still going to have a larger permanent wound cavity from 9mm, which could stop a fight sooner. But you also have a chance at making more hits and more holes with 30. Tough call, and it sounds really familiar, kind of like the 9mm versus 40 debate, right? But what about 30 Super Carry versus 380? This seems like a slam dunk, right? 30 Super Carry clearly beats the pants off of 380, at least ballistically speaking. So why even consider 380 at this point? Well, if we assume that 30 Super Carry will fit into the same size frame as super small 380s like the LCP Max or the Kel-Tec P380, then it might be night-night for 380. But that's an assumption that that would work, and if it does, that it wouldn't kick like a bitch. 9mm generates around 35,000 psi of pressure, while 380 generates 21,500 psi. The 40% reduced pressure of 380 means that you can get 380 in a much smaller gun than 9mm. The trick is that 30 Super Carry reportedly generates 50,000 psi, which is a lot. This is a pretty high pressure round. Does that mean that it's relegated to 9mm size guns only? Perhaps. But I'm not an engineer. This is just a point I'm trying to bring to your attention without giving you a straight answer on it, because I simply don't know. But if it were possible to get a 30 Super Carry into something the size of the LCP Max instead of the Max 9, the 30 might make the 380 obsolete. On the other hand, I'm not sure if 30 Super Carry would work in a gun the size of a Kel-Tec P380. I just don't see it happening with a round that generates more than double the max pressure of 380. That means 380's back on the menu, boys. I mean, what's cool about 380 is you get the weakest possible, but still FBI standard meeting round in the smallest possible package. If Super Carry can't beat 380 on its home turf, like super tiny guns, 380's probably not going to go anywhere, and I don't see any reason for you to get rid of your 380s either, at least not any new reason presented by the 30. The last two variables that I haven't talked about yet but are very important are price and recoil. Federal says MSRP for a box of 50 rounds of 30 Super Carry will be $30 a box. MSRP are about 60 cents a round. This is almost double the cost of 9mm, but about the same as 380 or 40. And Federal also says that recoil should be about the same as 9mm. Price, availability, and recoil are all yet to be seen, as this round doesn't officially drop until January 17. But ammo cost, availability, perceived recoil could make or break this round. At least there are some platforms on the way that will be out in 30 Super Carry. Nighthawk is making 2 models in 30 that you could purchase should you decide to take advantage of historically low lending rates and refinance your house to purchase a Nighthawk. More reasonably, the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus will be released in 30 Super Carry, and it'll hold 2 more rounds than the 9mm version. That's going to be cool. There's also a Shield EZ version that will be introduced with a 10-round capacity. Goodbye for people who have a hard time cycling a slide on an auto loader. I'm sure we're going to see more 30 Super Carry guns on the way, but the Shield Plus and 30 Super Carry could be a huge hit. Note that because 30 Super Carry is actually a smaller round, you just can't get a 30 Super Carry barrel, drop it into a 9mm, and expect it to work. In conclusion, I welcome the 30 Super Carry. I know there are a lot of internet commandos really riled up about a new caliber merely existing, believing that more calibers and more guns are going to somehow hurt them, which is weird. In my mind, more is always better. If I'm carrying a gun for personal protection, I would welcome a cartridge that's going to fall in between the substantial gap between 380 and 9mm. Will I ever buy it? Will I ever carry it? I don't know yet. But I've got to say, looking at Federal's initial data, it looks like you got a round that's only 10 to 15% less powerful than 9, while giving you 20% greater capacity. That sounds like it could be a fair trade to me, but we all have our own priorities. At this point, it's too early to tell. I want to see how successful this launch is. I want to see how good the pricing is, how many guns are going to be launched in this caliber, and I want to see some independent ballistic testing, not to mention I want to actually shoot one, which I will be doing in just a few days. More capacity, less power, still lethal. Little bit of a David and Goliath deal, but you can't ignore that it sounds just like the 9mm versus 40 S&W debates from a couple decades ago, and you know who won that fight. What do you guys think? Sound off in the comments, and thanks for watching, guys. I will see you all at SHOT Show. Thanks as usual to Ventura Munitions and to Top Gun Supply, your online shooting sports superstore. But thanks again for watching. Take care.